as smart as he usually is.
As Brown drives, scoop layup off the glass.
That's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice the body.
Kornet knocked away.
Welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. I'm getting some major off-season fatigue here as we're, I think, 25 days until the first Celtics preseason game, which is incredible. Alongside me, as he often is, it's Wayne Spooney. Spooney, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, dude. I know you don't care about football, Ben, but it definitely takes some of the sting out of not having the best NBA season right now. So I will say I'm always super excited for week one. And then I slowly don't care. And then once the NBA hits, I'm like totally out on football. But for now, I'll take whatever I could get.
Yeah, the Pats played today, right? Or tonight, your time? How'd they go?
Yeah.
Do you know?
They finished up about 15 minutes ago, and they lost to the Eagles. So 25-20. The Eagles handed them the game, but they made some interesting decisions that led to a loss. But look, the Eagles are like the favorite in the NFL. So they played all right.
Glad that Philly are the favorites in the NFL and not the NBA. I would not be able to stand that. And Tom Brady was apparently at the game as well. Did you manage to catch any of that?
He was up in the box, apparently. I mean, I have a 2.5-year-old, so like I'm not watching football all day nonstop like I used to back in the glory days. But we had it on, and I caught it here and there. But yeah, Brady was there, man, taking it in, watching Mac just embarrass himself.
Oh shit!
Nah, he was fine. He was fine.
Cool. Well, we will get to some NFL talk by way of our sponsor, FanDuel, in a little bit. Before we get started on this one, we've got some fun stuff to get to relative to where we're at in the off-season. But just quickly, guys, the First to the Floor podcast, we're running a promo at the moment, a Celtics jersey giveaway promo, where you could go in the entrance to win, or go in the draw, rather, to win your very own Jordan Walshy jersey, a custom Walshy jersey. That's not Walsh on the back. That's our good mate, Walshy, written on the back, sent to you anywhere in the world, every country, every corner of the globe, Antarctica, Greenland, all eligible for entry. All you have to do is leave us a 5-star rating and a favorable review on Apple Podcasts. Obviously, this is to help us with the algorithm. We're running this promotion all the way till the end of the off-season, and we'll do the draw live on a podcast at some point around training camp. So 5-star review or rating on Apple Podcasts. Nice review there as well. If you can leave your Twitter handle on the review there, so we have a way of contacting you, or do a screenshot and tag us on Instagram at First to the Floor, so we have some way of knowing who you are. We'll do a draw at the end of the offseason and send you your very own custom Walshy Celtics jersey. Spoonie, are you gonna formulate a burner iTunes account and try and get in the draw here?
Buddy, I got my wife's, I got my mom's, I got mine. I'm getting that Walshy jersey. Also, I love really hitting the population centers, Ben. Greenland and Antarctica. Really, lots of fans in both those spots. Scientists love us.
Oh, look, it's truly global affair here on First to the Floor. Right. We're all over the road. All right, before we get to the top concern for each individual Celtic player, and don't worry, we are going to run it back with the top most, I haven't figured out the title for this yet, but the top most favorable thing about every Celtic player going into the next season. Before we get to that, we do have a new signing to get to as I cue up the music here. We got the Funk on the Boston Celtics, Wade Spooney. Taylor Funk, a 25-year-old guy who plays basketball. Correct. The Celtics have signed him. Spooney, I reached out before we got started and said, can you gather some intel on this gentleman so that we can give the people at home something to take away from this signing? What have you got on Taylor Funk?
Yeah, so he is one of those dudes who spent a ton of time in college because he had a redshirt year and he had a COVID year. So he actually played in college for 6 years, which is longer than many guys' NBA careers. Was in St. Joe's in the A-10, played UMass a few times. But last year, his final year of eligibility, he transferred to Utah State. And tell me if you've heard this description of a Brad Stevens deep bench signing. He's 6'8", 6'9", and he shoots threes. Brad is getting a type here. So he 37% from three last year, I believe around that the year before. He's an incredible free throw shooter, which also really indicates the level of shooting. 90%, 87%, 90% from the line. And what I will say, what I really liked about when I just watched some highlight videos. I'm not like watching full Utah State games. I apologize, everyone. Like even I have limits. Yeah. But the threes he takes are not like wide open, standstill corner threes. Like he shoots with hands in his face. His jumper is smooth. It's like perfect. It's he's got a nice high release point. He gets it off quick. Like this dude has a beautiful jump shot, and like so I understand where Stevens is coming from, but I don't know how else to describe this other than he moves kind of like a center, which is not great. I do not mean that as a compliment either. Like he just seems like really labored in his movements, even like in a straight line. So I think athletically he's probably really lacking, and that's probably why a 6'9" guy who has a nice jump shot went undrafted, right? So plus he's already 25, so he's Jason Tatum's age, you know, to put that into perspective. So I Exhibit 10 deal, I think we've seen it with Brad. Like he is just going to filter through 6'6" to 6'9" guys who can shoot and hope he hits on one every now and again. And he's already done it it's already worked with Sam Hauser, right? Like Hauser on a ridiculous cheap contract for 3 more years. Like that's a home run. So I love this strategy from Stevens. Like keep bringing in big shooters in the door, and once in a while you'll hit on them. They'll have tremendous value, and I just think that's such a great way to use your deep bench, as opposed to Ainge was sort of more of a Tremont Waters, Carson Edwards, Taco, like these guys who don't really make a ton of sense in the modern NBA, but maybe are like stars in college. Whereas Stevens is almost looking for like high-end college, because this guy was essentially a role player for Utah State. Like it's not like he averaged 22 a game. I think he was like in the mid-teens, which is good, but it's not like Carson Edwards averaged like 20 something, right? So, so I like the process from Stevens, and maybe he'll shoot lights out preseason and he'll get that 15th roster spot.
I mean, I would be very surprised if he ended up on the roster beyond training camp. This is like, this guy is a big body to defend the Jays and Sam Hauser and that kind of thing in training camp, and just provide somewhat of a challenge defensively to our best offensive players. That said, while he is under the Celtics radar, we will be bringing home the funk as often as we can. A couple of white guys on a podcast here. It's not very often you sign a guy with a name that awesome. And yeah. Danny Ainge, he did have like a weird fetish for little people. And so Brad Stevens, what he's bringing to the table with his type, it's much more favorable and much more of a fit with the modern NBA. So that's really good. Folks in the chat, if you've got any thoughts on Taylor Funk, please let us know. Serious, non-serious, or otherwise. We should move on to the meat of this podcast. It might be a shorter one today. We'll see how we go. But we wanted to run through the one primary concern, aside from health, aside from injuries, which is really the primary concern for everybody on the roster, with every single Celtic, excluding two-way players and Exhibit 10 details. So we won't be covering our primary concerns with Taylor Funk on this episode. But Spoonie, any questions with the format or anything? I figured we'd just go back and forth. We'd start at the bottom of the roster, work our way up. We'll start with Svi Mihailuk. Any questions or ideas for how we should run through this before we get started?
No, that process sounds good to me. I did cheat on one guy, and this guy you
so
just have to
I.
talk about health. So
did I.
I did cheat once.
I won't ask. We'll find out when we get there. All right, I'll start, and then we'll kind of go back and forth snake draft, and we'll see if I have as much trouble with the snake draft as I did last time we used that format. So Svi Mihailuk, my primary concern is just like, is this one of his good three-point shooting seasons? Because if you look back at his three-point shooting percentage since the beginning of his career, he's kind of been zigging and zagging the whole way. And he zigged, I'm going to say zig is good. He had a pretty good shooting percentage from beyond the arc last year with the Hornets primarily. Is this going to be a downtick, or given the opportunity, is he going to be able to capitalize on those opportunities when defenses are swarming towards the Jays? Spoonie, by your reaction, I'm taking that's your main concern as well.
Yeah, mine was, can he actually shoot? because like realistically, he basically zagged his way out of the NBA, and Charlotte just kind of took a late season flyer on him, and he shot the absolute lights out of the ball, and that led to him becoming a Celtic, because had he not shot well in that like 10 or 15 games, whatever it was, he probably would be in Europe right now. So I think that's like, when you're a guy who is not a positive defensive player and you're not taking people off the dribble and playmaking, like, you just have to shoot in the modern NBA. There's no way around it. And Svi's weird because he came out of college a shooter. He shot it fine for his first year or two, and then it just kind of disappeared on him. So I do think he can shoot. I think he's been on some bad and weird teams. Like, he's going to have the easiest shots of his entire career with the Celtics, playing with Tatum, playing with Brown, playing with Kristaps. So I think the answer to this one is yes, he can actually shoot. But yeah, I'm with you, Ben. Like, you're not an NBA player if you can't at least make like 37% of your threes.
Yeah, especially in that role. And a comment here in the chat. And folks watching live, like, let us know your concerns with each of these players as we run through them, and we'll feature them on the podcast as we go forward. But Adam in the chat, regarding Svi Mykhailiuk, can he actually defend bench players? That remains to be seen. There's ample sample size that he cannot, but also it's like, that's not the concern, because that's not the expectation. The expectation is that he'll capitalize on open corner threes, right? And we're not necessarily asking him to come out there, a la Marcus Smart, and lock down even like the opposing team's worst players, let alone their best players. So whether he can or can't, like, I'm not really concerned, because I'm not expecting that of him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about, can he execute the defensive scheme? Like, he's going to get blown by here and there. That's fine. But he can't be a target every single time down. And that's a pretty low bar, frankly. So, and I'm not 100% confident he can meet that bar, but but he has a chance. He has a chance to meet that bar at least. So we will see. I'm pretty excited. He's a fun deep bench guy. I think he could have a decent year.
All right, you've got Delano, Banton, Spoonie. What do you got here?
Yes,
what's your top concern?
Okay. Was that showing in Summer League the real Delano Banton? Meaning, was that absurdly horrid inefficiency who he is? And he has not been particularly efficient in the NBA. And it kind of concerns me. Like, okay, if you can't have any threat of scoring, how are you going to play make? Because nobody's going to be open. Because no one's going to help off of their guy to stop Delano Banton. So, yeah, is he truly this horribly inefficient is my primary concern.
Yeah, my primary concern is an extension of that. My concern is, like, does he even make the roster? Like, I think he's got $200K guaranteed currently, and he gets another $1 million fully guaranteed on opening night. So obviously he's got training camp between now and then, and like, he is sort of competing if you think about his like archetype. Like, yes, he's a guard, but like, how he'll be used, like, it won't be for playmaking, like you touched on there, Spoonie. It's primarily going to be for like defending bench guards, and there are other people who are coming along to training camp who possess those abilities. So, he's partially guaranteed or barely guaranteed for a good reason there. He has to prove himself. And so we had a moment during the off season, sort of in the wake of the excitement with Porzingis. Oh, Delano Banton, Brad's doing work, but like, at the end of the day, like, he's not fully guaranteed financially or, otherwise. Does he even make the roster, I suppose, is my concern. And yes, that doesn't speak to like what we should be concerned about in terms of his on-court play, but I think you pretty much like nailed it there, Spoonie, as far as like, what can we expect from him offensively? So we'll see. Jordan Walsh, if we want to move on. My primary concern is, does the defensive prowess just not translate to the NBA? Like, we've seen it in college. We saw it in the Summer League. There was also, the way that we watch Summer League games, especially when there's no like first round talent on the team, is through rose-colored glasses. And the Walshy experience was great. And then you add, the amazing three-point shooting, the unexpectedly amazing three-point shooting. He did have a lot of holes, like, sort of fundamentally in his game. And what I noticed a lot is how he would not box out frequently, rebounding defensively. He would get backdoor cut, quite a lot as well, just as far as like not necessarily paying attention and sticking with the defensive scheme all of the time. you mentioned it was Fee. Like, you can kind of like get away with some singular defensive deficiencies just by sticking with and playing within the team scheme. We know Walsh is kind of the inverse of that, at least. Like, we know that he's a great individual defender. Can he like keep up with an NBA defense? So that's kind of, I wouldn't even necessarily call it a concern, because like relative to expectations, like I don't think we're expecting a lot of Walshy coming into this season. But if I just have one concern that comes to mind that might put him on the bench or send him off to Maine sooner rather than later, it might be his potential inability to play within an NBA defensive scheme.
Okay, so that's a great one, Ben. It's kind of like Jaylen Brown, right? Obviously, Brown's so good offensively, it doesn't matter really defensively. But like on ball, when he's locked in, he's awesome, but he just doesn't execute the scheme efficiently all the time. So in Walsh, he fouls way too much too, and that is going to be you get 10 in summer league, like you don't get 10 in the NBA, buddy. So that could keep him off the floor. But I went with can we get anything at all offensively from him? Because I'm not sure we can. Like I don't know if I buy 37% from 3 on that small sample size in these like pickup games in Las Vegas, man. Like his shooting, his jump shot's not broken or anything, but I really worry that like he's going to be such a hole offensively that even if he's positive on the defensive end, like he's just not going to be able, we're not going to be able to play him. So that's my big, so we're worried about his defense and his offense. Maybe not a great start for but we're giving his jersey away.
That's right. Yeah. We love Walshy, unconditionally.
Young.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just young, man.
He'll be fine. And he will be more open for all of those shots, all of those threes than he was ever in summer league or even college. So it'll be interesting to see how he converts on those looks. O'Shea Brissett. I got lazy with this one. I just put, and this is based on sort of reading your, not that recent, but, from this offseason article on Celtics blog, Spoody, on O'Shea Brissett. I just put most likely to be terrible, like most likely to be the scapegoat, the top candidate as the team's scapegoat in lieu of guys like Grant Williams and Marcus Smart, who was often a scapegoat for the Celtics. Yeah. I feel like part of it is like what we need / expect O'Shea Brissett to fill skill-wise with Grant Williams out the door. And, he's on a vet min. So that should tell us everything we need to know about like what we should expect from him. And yet the void we're looking to fill is much greater than that. And therefore, I think naturally, expectations are going to be greater than what we would normally have for a vet minimum player. And he's just not that good. He's just he's just not that good a player. Yeah, and so therefore he's gonna have multiple bed shittings throughout the season, possibly early, and develop a cohort of hatred among Celtics fans, I think. So my main concern is, I guess, for his mental health if he checks social media after games, and just for his likelihood to disappoint.
Yeah, I think Brissett becoming a scapegoat, if there's a guy on the roster you could bet on, it'll be him or Jaylen Brown, I think.
Jaylen.
Yeah, well, and you're right. Like, I'm not super high on Brissett, so if people talk about him like he's this plus amazing defender, he's really not. Like, he's not terrible, but he's also limited offensively. So it's like, can he defend at a high enough level that like he forces himself to be on the court where his like mediocre 3-point shooting and not much else is enough? And I'm not super confident he can. Like, he's fine. He's fine on defense, but he's a below average offensive player. So then it's like, you might as well see what you got with Walsh, or at least V, is probably a plus offensive player. So I'm with you. I have a lot of concerns with Brissett. I hope he proves me wrong, because he's shown it in flashes. He's had times where he's played well, so maybe he can. But yeah, my concern is sort of just he's got to be really good defensively in order for him to play, because he's just not a good offensive player.
We know he comes from a top 3 basketball nation in the world. Third place in World Basketball Championship, beating out the US last night. I guess it was this morning for you, Spoonie. So maybe he takes inspiration from that. Luke Kornet, non-guaranteed. He's fully guaranteed on, according to SpotTrack, the 10th of January, 2024, which seems odd, but that's the data. I really have no concerns about Luke Kornet. I actually found Luke Kornet to be the most difficult player to...
I got a good one.
Okay, generate concerns for, because for me, he's like the most perfectly positioned, expectation-wise of all Celtic players. So just like rock up, be healthy, like manage the vibes in the locker room in lieu of Blake Griffin, and just like give us your like 5 to 10 minutes a night. That's it.
Yeah, that's fair. He had a lower defensive rebounding percentage than Tatum, Blake, Vonleh, Horford, Jaylen, Grant, and Brogdon last year.
Okay, well
he is an awful defensive rebounder, and when you're a 7'2" center, like you just cannot be bad on the defensive glass. So that's my concern with Luke. It's been a concern his entire career. He's now like 27, so I don't think it's going to get any better. But you're right. Like, he's good enough at other stuff that he's, he can give you 8 minutes and it's fine, and he's not going to kill you. Maybe he hits 2 threes and we have a lot of fun, and he's doing the Stroh Swift bird celebration, and everybody's having a great time. And he's a great offensive rebounder, so he makes up for it somewhat by extra possessions. But the defensive rebounding, man, that's a glaring hole in his game, I feel like. But, yeah, ultimately, the big question is whether he can keep the vibes up in Blake's absence, and that's the most important thing, maybe on the season.
Yeah, incredibly. Forget Jason Tatum's MVP candidacy.
Yeah.
What we're really concerned about is Luke Kornet and the vibes
Exactly.
in the locker room. Yeah, very valid concern. All right, what have you got on Sam Hauser, Spoonie?
Okay, I think we all agree, right? The house trap, like Sam Hauser's defense was average last year, which was way better than any of us expected. But was that real? Like, I wouldn't be shocked if all of a sudden he's getting blown by and teams figure out, like, oh, don't just isolate him with a bad ball handler. Put him in off-ball stuff, make him uncomfortable, and then go by him. Or, make him close out on a shooter, pump fake, and then blow by him. So I'm mostly worried about, like, if that defense from Hauser is legitimate, like, this dude is going to have a 15-year NBA career. But I think he's just got to show it for more than 1 year. That's all.
Yeah, I had defensive drop-off as well.
Yeah, nice.
Would be the most heartbreaking thing. Maybe
Yes.
a repeat of his mid-season shooting slump as well. Just he starts to sort of spread out the sample size of like exactly how good of a shooter he is, and maybe gives us more of a bad sample size to sort of average out his actual, the eliteness or lack thereof of his shooting. I think that's less likely than the defensive drop-off, but it's something to be concerned about. I want to pause and just acknowledge for any Celtics fans listening or watching live, pulling their hair out. We are going to do, like I said, the top thing we're most stoked and excited about going into the season for each player as well. So this is just, this is part of the conversation, but we're going to end with the good stuff a little later in the week after our trivia show, which comes on Tuesday night. Peyton Pritchard, my main concern is that he somehow remains unhappy with his role. Like, just say, for example, Malcolm Brogdon gives us everything we need off the bench as far as an additional ball handler, an additional playmaker. I know we're not necessarily expecting that, and if anything, we're expecting Brogdon to back up Jaylen off the bench. But let's just say Brogdon, he comes back, he's been appeased by the front office, he's no longer butthurt about the offseason near trade. He's spent time, thinking inwardly, but also studying film and figuring out how he can be a better complement to players on the team. And he gives us everything we need from a backup playmaking perspective. Does that then diminish Pritchard's sense of a role, as well as literally his role in terms of minutes and touches and usage rate and things like that? So it's more of a hypothetical concern. Maybe all of these are, but that's what bugs me the most for Pritchard. Yeah,
so mine is actually related. Will he give us anything more than shooting on offense? And it goes to partly it's not Pritchard's fault entirely that he basically was only a spot up shooter last year. That's partially in just how he was used, coaching. And if he's used in that way again, the answer will be no, he won't give us anything more than shooting. And you'll probably be proven right, and that he'll probably be pretty unhappy with his role as well. So I'd like to see him used in a little more inventive ways. I just wrote about it for Celtics blog about using him as the screen setter and pick and pops with Jason Tatum. And there's ways you can use guys that are great shooters that isn't just stand in a corner or have them be the ball handlers, the pick and roll. Send them off screens, send them off down screens, have them, cut baseline. I'm there's a lot of things you can do, and we didn't really see it at all last year with Pritchard. So I'd like to see him, get a little more comfortable, see a little bit more of the ball, and because he's decent, like at the floater range, pulling up from mid range. Like he's an okay finisher. He's a good finisher for a 6'1" guard. So
Yeah.
he can give you a little bit more. I'm not high on his playmaking, so I don't expect that to really go anywhere. But yeah, I'm with you, Ben. It's like I'll be interested to see what his role is, and I think a lot of that will depend on whether he's happy and whether we get the most out of him.
Yeah, we'll see. His happiness is important to me, like personally, and like my enjoyment of the season. Like, I just want that guy to be happy. He's cool. I enjoy Peyton Pritchard, as I do everyone on the roster, but Peyton Pritchard's happiness on and off the court is like personally important to me. Al Horford, if we want to move on, Spoonie, what have you got? Your number one non-health related concern for Al Horford?
Okay, so this isn't the one I cheated on, but it's getting close to cheating.
Yeah, I know,
it's
right?
just like, at what point does age just hit him, right? And he just isn't the defender he's been. Because like I think we saw his age-related regression really like inside the arc offensively, where like Al used to get up for like oops and jam on people and post up and bang bodies. He just did none of that last year. He just basically shot threes and was used as kind of like a playmaking hub here and there. So will the age-related regression finally hit his defense? And then I think we're going to have to start talking about, wow, how many minutes can we really play Al Horford? Not because we want to preserve him, because maybe he's not that valuable anymore. And please know, Horford is my favorite. It pains me to even consider this possibility, but like, he's 37, man. Like, it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's happening to me in my regular life. Not that I'm close to an NBA athlete at all, but yeah, almost 37 years old and struggling. Yeah, I had father time comes a knocking for Al Horford, so essentially the same thing. I'm going to get to some 2K stuff later because that game, 2K24, has just come out, and Horford in his adjusted role in 2K, obviously there's very few parallels between NBA 2K and the real life NBA, but Horford coming off the bench as a backup big in a limited role will hopefully prolong what we're or the opposite of what we're fearing there, and that he continues to be an effective player. Malcolm Brogdon still can't figure out how to gel with key players, a la, or e.g. Jaylen Brown and Rob Williams is my main concern. So essentially, aside from health, which we're excluding, a continuation of last year where he's just unable to get the best out of some of our most important players. What was your top concern for Malcolm Brogdon?
Brogdon shot 44% from three and 50% at the rim. So like, what if his shooting regresses to like 38%, which is still great, but he was so inefficient around the rim last year. Like, he's going to become from a highly efficient player to like average. Mm-hmm. And then if he doesn't do the playmaking things you're talking about, like, how valuable is he really at that point, right? Like, you've got this high volume guard. I do think he's a solid playmaker. Like, I don't want to say he's not. I think you're right. He's got better. He lacks chemistry rather with Brown and Rob Williams, especially, weirdly so. But like, if that shooting drops off even to just like really good levels but not hyper elite levels, like, I don't know, man, like that would really tank his value in a lot of ways. So he'd have to counteract that by becoming a better playmaker. Maybe that's the best thing for the team. I don't know, but I just worry he's kind of got a little bit of house of cards going with his 3-point shooting last year, just being so incredibly efficient. It just masked any other issues he had. But I do think the chemistry will be a little bit better this year. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I hope you're right. The 3-point shooting, that's a really good one. Like, I would almost happily concede the playmaking and the chemistry if it just continued to be like a world-beating, league-leading 3-point shooter. Would you go the other way, Spoonie? Like, would you give up like a slight reduction in 3-point shooting if you knew going in that his chemistry with guys like Time Lord and JB was going to be improved?
I think I probably would. If Marcus Smart was still here, I would not. But without Smart, I mean, we lost our best passer and replaced him with like Porzingis is fine, but he's not a playmaker by any means, right? Like, there's going to be a lot of playmaking burden on Brogdon's shoulders this year. So I think because Smart's out the door, I probably would take that trade-off. But, dude, shooting 44% for three on the volume he took is like, that is such a weapon. That is like game breaking. That's like Steph Curry stuff, you know? So I don't know. That's a really tough question. So you would say like not F the playmaking.
I don't
like
know.
Similar level as last year. Yeah. See,
I don't know. Like, yeah, I mean, maybe. If I had the option to like switch it back if it didn't work.
Right.
It's hard to give up elite 3-point shooting. Like that's a great skill to have, and so we'll see. Hopefully it's both, and we are going to get into the starting five here as we rocket our way through our run sheet here, Spoonie. But before we do that, we just want a quick word from our sponsor, FanDuel.
New FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV.
We won't spend long on this, Spoonie, but from what you saw today from the NFL opening day or opening weekend, I guess it is now, have you been influenced one way or the other? I feel like you're like glancing down at FanDuel right now, so I'm trying to elongate my sentence. All right, let's hear it.
Okay. Bills, Jets, Monday night, battle in New York. Everyone is on the Jet. Oh, they got Aaron Rodgers. They're so loaded. Aaron Rodgers was not good last year. I'm sorry. He was not good. Bills, -2. They're one of the favorites for a reason. They're going to destroy the Jets. Everyone's going to remember Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old. Give me the Bills, -2. Lock it in, and forget I said this if they get blown out.
Yeah, gamble responsibly.
Yes, of course.
But yes, also lock that in responsibly. Within an amount you can afford to lose.
Right.
All right, let's move on. Thanks, FanDuel, and thank you for CLNS for presenting this First to the Floor podcast. Robert Williams, is this the player that you are just like, it is health, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Porzingis was maybe the other candidate, which we'll get to, but if Robert Williams is healthy, it sounds like we fully agree on this. Folks in the chat, let us know your thoughts. If he's healthy, then we really have no concerns because of what he brings to the game on both ends. If he is just the Robert Williams that we have come to know and love pre-multiple surgeries.
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. Like, he's got holes in his game. Do not care. He is an absolute game breaker when he's fully healthy. He can switch. He can protect the rim. He gets in the passing lanes, and he dunks everything. I'm pretty sure he's caught 3-point shots and dunked them. I may be making that up. But, like, he's just such a potent offensive player with his vertical spacing and his passing, which is something we didn't see a lot last year. But, like, Rob knows how to read the game. He knows how to hit passes. He's accurate. So, like, I don't care about his skills. I'm not worried about anything related to his skill set. He's just got us. I put specifically healthy for the playoffs. You can play 35 games in the regular season, Rob. I don't care. We'll laugh about Luke giving us 15 good minutes for 2 months or whatever. Just give me one playoff run while the Jays are in their prime, dude. That is all I ask. Just
please, one. God. Please, God. Please, Red Auerbach from above. All right, Derek White, Spoonie. What's your number one concern with Derek White?
I couldn't pick for Derek White, so let me give you one, and then maybe you have the other one. So, can he handle being the lead ball handler?
Yeah, that's exactly what I had.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Because he did it in San Antonio, but those teams sucked. And he had DeJounte Murray next to him as well, so it's not like he was exclusively this high usage point guard for the Spurs. That's a hard role to play, and it's one Smart struggled with, but was pretty good at it on balance. I think he can, but I also think you'd be crazy not to at least worry a little bit, right?
Yeah, I worry a lot. Every day, every second of every day. That's all I do. Yeah, it's big shoes to fill playmaking wise. I think, if anyone can do it, it's going to be Derek White. But, when he had that player of the week stretch, it wasn't necessarily the playmaking that he was being celebrated for at that time. There was a lot of, scoring and at defense, of course, a lot of other things that sort of brought him to the top there, not his playmaking. But, with an off season to sort of study and prepare, if anyone on the roster can fill those shoes, I believe it's Derek White. I do believe that he's a cognizant, intelligent, high IQ player who can adjust to certain roles and has a really good history of doing that. If you think about the way that he like came to who he is now, and he's come up, if you will, he's faced a lot of challenges and he's had to adapt his game, multiple times at multiple points in his career, at varying levels of status to get where he is now. So I do think that he's demonstrated an ability, but when it comes down to it, it's just like, do you have the talent? Do you have the ability to see the game that way as an elite playmaker? It's kind of what we need from you. So that's why it's our biggest concern, but I'm also confident maybe of all of these concerns, maybe the one that I'm least concerned about is Derek White in this situation.
Yeah, same. And look, it's like, it's great that you play the game the right way and never make bad decisions, but look, sometimes you just need your point guard to crack somebody off the dribble and get to the rim and make a play. And
sure.
like, I think Derek White can do that, but like sometimes he's kind of passive. Like maybe he won't kind of live up to that moment when we need it late in a game. Just like, we need you to make a play, dude. Like Tatum's getting doubled, Brown's off tonight. Like you just got to get to the rim. I think he will. Again, I'm with you. I'm very not concerned about Derek White. But there's a question there. And the other one I had was, is the shooting bump real? Because he had a nice little jump in his 3-point percentage. I also believe that is his jumper just looked better, and he only went up from like 35% to 38%. It wasn't like 10%. So I think that's real too. We're all surprise, first of the floor, high on Derek White.
Yeah, high on anxiety, about the whole
too.
team. But yeah, high on Derek White. Shout out to the mistress there and Jake Eisenberg. So before we move on to Porzingis, I had a thought there on Derek White. Yeah, so that was my one good memory from Game 7 against the Heat was Derek White actually being decisive and breaking guys down off the dribble and getting to the rim and like being the best version of Derek White. Unfortunately, that's peppered with and surrounded by so many bad memories that kind of dominate like that mental space. But it's one game, but like, has Derek White found something there ability-wise? And then as far as the shot, like he was sort of making that adjustment to his shooting form going into last season. So you've got to hope that like with more time, with more reps, with more practice, with more in-game reps as well, that becomes just more of a natural motion for Derek White there. Kristaps Porzingis, when push comes to shove, this is my major concern. Is he going to gel with the Jays? That's kind of like, that's the big deal, right? Like we've got, like I would say that it's a big three. Would you agree that this is like technically a big three?
Yeah, I mean, look, Porzingis averaged over 20 points a game last year. Like, he is a borderline all-star. It is now, maybe it's even a big four.
Ooh, Derek White?
Yeah, of course.
Call it a big five. Yeah, it's just like when it's all said and done, Brad Stevens, he's done the math, he's done the paperwork, he's done all of the envisioning that he can do about how this is going to fit together. Like, will it? Does it? Can they gel? And we've seen so much of that brought into question with just the big two, with the Jays, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Are we actually going to see Porzingis somehow integrate into that? And this leads into my concerns, not to give too much away, about HJ moving forward. Like, how are they going to handle that integration as well? So I hope it works. That's my concern.
Yeah, and one thing I noted is, like, it did not look great for Porzingis with Luka. He didn't really seem to fit with Luka. I get it. There's some serious, like, anomalies with Luka's play style that I think led to that. But look, Luka's usage is lower than if you combine the Jays' usage. So there's like more of the ball technically in Dallas than there is in Boston. I think the flip side is Luka also pounds it for 15 seconds every possession before he does anything. So they don't quite play like that. But yeah, I think that's exactly what I had. How will he fit next to two high usage stars? I think that could be the same for Jaylen Brown and the same for Jason Tatum. But I did come up with other ones for those guys.
All right, cool. Yeah, same. So on that, what have you got for Jaylen Brown?
Will the 3-point shooting come back? And
that's better than mine.
We didn't really talk about it much last year, but Jaylen Brown shot 33.5% from three last year. Like, that's bad. We talked about Tatum shooting, but he was over 35%. Like, 33.5 is not good, man. And like, I don't know. I'm not real worried. I do think it'll come back. But that kind of changes his offensive game if he's not like an above average 3-point shooter. I think he kind of leaned into getting into the mid range, getting to the rim more last year, and maybe like on balance that's a good thing. But like, you know, it would be even better if he did all that stuff and shot 37% from three. So I'm hoping he gets back up to that sort of above average shooting level.
Yeah, well, I very much agree with that, and it kind of leads into my main concern, which is, can he live up to the contract in his mind? As in, if he feels that he's underperforming relative to his contract, does that start to erode at his approach to not only the game, but also like his place on the Celtics? Does he start to question whether or not the reason he's not living up to that contract, you can tell I've been in my head deeply about this, Foodie, like it's because like of his situation on the team and his role on the team, and maybe, you know, that amount of money would be better assigned elsewhere in another role on another team. Maybe I'm overthinking it. In fact, I'm sure that I am. But
Maybe a
you know,
little.
if his 3-point shooting doesn't, you know, elevate back to, I guess, his career average, or at least what we've come to expect of him recently, like post Hayward and Kyrie, you know, does that start to erode at his mind as far as like his self-perception and like who he is as a max player? So that's my concern. And I guess the positive takeaway is like, if that's what you're worried about, then like we're okay.
Pretty damn good player. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty damn good player. But it is kind of weird that now he's now a higher paid player than Jason Tatum, which, you know, maybe there could be some friction there. I really don't think so. But if you really wanted to go down the contract rabbit hole, I think that sort of argument's out there too. But like, living up to $300 billion, that's a lot of pressure on somebody, dude.
Yeah.
So like yeah. And he's always kind of been like a confidence guy, you know? So yeah, I had not thought about that, Ben, but that's interesting. You've got me terrified.
I'm sorry to enter those dark thoughts into your mind, anyone listening. That's the plight of the First of the Floor podcast. This is why we do the pod, is right to exercise these demons and to as an outlet. So I'm sure many people listening can relate to that approach to being a Celtics fan. All right, final player, some guy named Jason Tatum. I hope I haven't missed anyone on the roster. I'm pretty sure I got it all. It's just a copy and paste from Basketball Reference, so it should be good. My main concern, what's the end result to everything if he doesn't make the leap? That is shooting more efficiently, playmaking, filling the leadership void, which is huge, and Brad Stevens has been really vocal about. Everything is dependent on this happening in the next 2 years at most. If you think about the Porzingis contract length, if you think about, you know, the second apron and the increasing lack of maneuverability the longer we hold on to Jaylen Brown, like that is a narrow window, unfortunately. If the biggest point of celebration for us as Celtics fans has been like, the Jays are so young, we've got forever to figure it out. It's like, well, we kind of don't because of this new CBA now. So if Jason Tatum, and unfortunately he's only 25, historically that leap comes a year or 2 or 3 or 4 from now. If he doesn't make that leap, then like, does it all just kind of fall apart? That's my concern, which is a huge concern.
Good God, Ben, this is getting dark.
You can see why I needed to do this.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I mean, maybe the flip side is like maybe the talent ad with Porzingis kind of hedges against that. Like, what if we had Porzingis against Golden State? Like, I mean, that's probably a lot of empty offensive possessions that turn into buckets with somebody like Kristaps out there. So maybe that kind of erodes that fear just a little bit. But you're right. Like, Tatum's just got to take, I don't even think it's a full step. It's just, he just needs like 1/2 step higher than he's been able to reach. Mine's a little more in the weeds. How will he adapt offensively without Marcus Smart? So Smart assisted him the most, basically, the last since, you know, Kemba was off the team. Smart had more than double the assists to Tatum of anyone else in 21-22, and 35 more than Derek White, who was second in assists to Tatum. And 74 of Smart's assists to Tatum were for 2-point field goals, which is, you know, there was like 115 assists. So way more than half were for twos, which I think is like, often you think of like, oh, kickouts to the corner, open three. Like, no, Smart's getting him layups and dunks. And that's really valuable. And that helped, like, often we'd talk about, like, oh, Tatum got a dunk and a layup into the line in the first, like, 5 minutes of a game. He's going for 40. And lots of times it was Marcus Smart who got him going early.
Yeah.
So, I think, like, this team is going to have to adapt without Marcus Smart. Like, I think he's more important maybe to sort of when we were playing our best, Smart was at the middle of it. And when we were playing our worst, Smart was probably also at the middle of it in some ways. But, like, when we were at our best, like, we're going to miss Marcus Smart. And I think Derek White can pick up that slack. But, like, getting somebody that many easy buckets is a very difficult skill to replace. So Tatum's going to have to change things a little bit. And I think the change will be he'll just be on ball more, which I'm comfortable with, but some people do not want to see. But I have a little bit of worry there. I am way more afraid of what you've described now than what I'm concerned about, though. But I got if we're gonna trust anybody to make that leap, it's got to be Jason Tatum, right? Like that
Sure.
dude works his balls off.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't worry that much about it because I suppose at the end of the day, I'm pretty confident that he can and will and has shown signs of him making that leap. But you know, you mentioned it, Spoonie. Marcus Smart, I've long maintained this, is the world's leading expert on the Jays. Like, and just like who they are and how they operate. And without that expert and their ensuing expertise on the court,
The
like
tutelage.
making the Jays, making the Jays like be themselves. The Jays have to fill their own shoes, and Tatum is really at the helm of that as far as like how far this team can go. All other concerns that we've articulated here, none of them matter nearly as much as like can Tatum just like be that guy. And I think we all think he can, so it's not that big a deal. Are we going to do Joe Mazzulla as well? Adam is asking in the chat. I didn't have anything prepared on Joe Spoonie. I mean, I think just the first thing that comes to mind is like, can he shake off the rookie coaching cobwebs and show the best of last year, which we saw plenty of, particularly in the first half of the season, while doing away with some of the really obvious criticisms like the lack of timeouts, like not necessarily, at least from watching from home, being like the voice in the huddle or the locker room. Can he quell those criticisms? So what do you think? Putting you on the spot here, but I think it's a valid question.
I think about when we had Corrales on a lot, and he was kind of like giving his analysis about Grant Williams' interview and how he was saying like Joe's so analytical, like instead of like Udoka would just be like, do what I told you to do, but do it better. And Joe would be like, okay, that didn't work. Next thing. I want Joe to get a little more asshole in him. Like,
sure.
You know what I mean? Just like be better. I've just like be more confident in his game plan. Maybe just like stick with stuff longer to really see if it works. Because at times guys kind of looked confused defensively, which was not a thing under Udoka. Like they knew where to be at all times. So maybe simplify things just a little bit, I guess is where I would say. And kind of let the talent just be the talent and don't try to be like the brain behind the talent all the time. Like Joe, you'll have your opportunities to be that guy, but sometimes you just got to let the Jays be themselves out there. And just like get them to play a little harder as well, please. Just a little bit harder.
That'd be nice.
They coasted at times last year.
Oh yeah. I think that he will figure that out because that approach you mentioned from last year of like, oh, that didn't work. Next thing. Like that's just another way of saying trial and error. And at a certain point in any sort of aspect of life, work or parenting or whatever it might be, you do eventually rule out all of the things that don't work. And you're left with a nice, bag, if you will, for lack of a better term, of tools to pull out in certain situations. And he had an incredibly successful rookie coaching season despite all of that trial and error, emphasis on error. We saw much of that. And I do believe that, moving into his second season and you add the veteranship, is that a word, of his assistant coaching staff that he's brought on, like I do have a lot of confidence. It might be the least of my concerns among everything that we've talked about in this podcast. Like I think that Joe Mazzulla can figure that out and may very well have and might be chomping at the bit to get out there as a coach in his second season. anything else you want to touch on concern-wise, like a secondary concern that maybe didn't come up before we wrap up here, Spoony?
This is Gorman's last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a concern.
That's my biggest concern with the team. I love Grandy, but like Mike, man, the swan song. I'm gonna enjoy every time he's on the call.
Yeah, just enjoy every single moment. Yeah, fully agree. And just to wrap up here, Spoony, I take it you haven't had a moment to play the new NBA 2K. Have you played? Is it Starfield? Have you played that game?
I have not played Starfield. I'm a weirdo, dude. Like I play old games that I missed. So I've been playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Oh, I've played that. Game rules.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that game was the last game that I spent way too long on before my daughter was born. So I'm very familiar with that game. That's great. Some accurate Greek history and some very inaccurate Greek history.
Yes, I can tell.
In that game as well. All right. Well, just for the 2K nerds out there, I wanted to deliver an update on what 2K24 specifically is like for the older Celtics fan, like AKA me. That is someone who buys the game every year just to play the GM mode, my NBA with minimal gameplay improvements. No my career, no my team, none of that money grabbing stuff, just the pure non-micro transaction based version of the game. And folks watching, listening, let us know in the comments your experiences with the game so far. So here are my takes after playing it a few nights in a row now since the game came out after my daughter and wife go to bed. So kind of limited, but I've been playing the game since 2K8. So I like to think that I've got, some thoughts here. So Jason Tatum, first of all, is legitimately powerful in this version of the game. Last year was an improvement on the few years prior where he was kind of useless. Like you couldn't use him as a solo get to the basket or step back three scorer. But this year, the shot release is pure, if not better than his rookie season in 2K, which diehards know was an OP jump shot release. So Tatum's incredible. He's rated 95. Draft him in your 2K fantasy drafts, playing with your mates. He's good. He's legit. He's Durant level in 2K. There also seems to be a bump off or off arm feature in the game. So for example, if Tatum's defender stays with him all the way to the rim, Tatum is now big and strong enough to bump the defender off position and then finish cleanly with a layup or a dunk. Awesome and unprecedented in my 2K experience. A few more. Sorry, Spoony, stop me. This is a rant, so just feel free to jump in. I will rant here. Apologies to all rant haters. Jaylen Brown, money on contested threes. That's a takeaway. The release is easy to hit perfectly. He will hit a three over any defender. Mistimed, this is a big one, mistimed jump shot releases actually still hit at a high clip now if it's a good jump shot. So an example would be with Malcolm Brogdon, who has a notoriously difficult release. If you found him for a wide open corner three in prior 2Ks, if you didn't time the jump shot properly, which is impossible to do, he would miss. This version of 2K seems to realize a good shot is a good shot and will reward you for that as opposed to your mistimed jump shot. So my 3-point makes in the corner with Malcolm Brogdon are up on last year significantly. Okay, this is an obvious one. Porzingis is pretty OP, overpowered for the non-gamers out there, and Tatum and Jaylen and the Porzingis combined big three is pretty unfair on most opponents. I've played some online matchups. It's ridiculous, and especially when accompanied or sandwiched by Derek White and Rob Williams. It's probably the best roster since NBA 2K18 prior to Gordon Hayward's injury or NBA 2K10 before 2K realized the effects of Garnett's lower leg injury. So that's exciting, especially the relative youth of the roster. I promise I only have a few more notes here, Spoony. So Derek White, frustratingly, still has hair in the game. 2K, you got to fix that. This is also by far the best 2K version of Peyton Pritchard. His jump shot is money. He's fast. He's a terrible defender. He's basically finally an accurate depiction of Peyton Pritchard. 3 more. Al Horford, I already mentioned this actually, an incredible backup center. 2K are yet to program in his oldness. So he's just a starting center coming off the bench, which is great. Hauser, Brissett, Svi Mihalik, Jordan Walsh, all useless, but the rotation is easily 8 deep with contributors with Horford, Pritchard, and Brogdon off the bench. And I already mentioned this being the best 2K team in a while. So that's everything I've got. Those are the notes from my research, my practical research of playing the new NBA 2K. Folks in the comments now or after the fact, Let us know your thoughts. Spoonie, does that make you more or less likely to, maybe I've spoiled it for you, to go and buy the game?
So I have been debating buying this one. I used to buy it I had a Dreamcast, brother. I had like the original NBA 2K. So
Nice.
I played it forever. And then once it went, I think 18 might have been the last one I played, really. And I just like I got it for free. 2K22 I got for free. And dude, I was lost. I had no idea what I was doing. But I've been debating picking this one up and like watching a YouTube video to like how you take a layup because I like couldn't figure that out. So should I buy it, Ben? Is it good? Is it like, if I haven't played in 5 years, will I be like, holy shit, this is amazing?
I do feel like the gameplay mechanics are better. Like I mentioned, that sort of bump off physics, like that's new. It used to be prohibitively difficult to get to the rim with good players. I don't know why I'm doing that, quotes. Like Tatum, like he gets to the rim with ease, and now I feel like the game recognizes that, and it's a little bit more true to life. That said, 90% of the game and everything that 2K puts the effort into is that microtransaction aspect of the game, which is fucking bullshit. But if you just like a MyGM version of the game and you like trades and player development and things like that, then I'll always shout out the MyGM mode there. It's always worthwhile in my opinion.
All right, I think you could. I might wait. Usually it's on sale on Black Friday, so I'll see. I can't wait, though. I have absolutely zero self-control with video games, so I will probably own it by Tuesday when we jump on the podcast.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. All right, that is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back live on this channel Tuesday night for the grand final of our 2023 off-season Celtics Trivia Bonanza. That's going to be a spicy one. Spoonie, love your work, mate. Until next time, go Celtics.